It's an honor and privilege to welcome you all to the first session and the second day of the 10th TWAS-ARO meeting at the library. Well, we are now counting hours towards the end of 2014, and we are looking with hope for 2015 to be much better. But normally at the end, at the turn of the year, we look with hope and expectation for better. We look for glimpses of light to give us hope for a better future. And nothing better than stories of success, real success or on a road towards success. This will give us inspiration for achievement, which we need most now. It's an honor and privilege for me to chair this first session on towards success. This was the title of this session, which is very inspiring, actually. We have in this session two eminent speakers. We were supposed to have Dr. Tariq Shawki, as Dr. Aham said, but he just apologized. But we have two eminent speakers, and will give us really stories of real success towards more success in the near future. Our first speaker is the Professor Hamadan. Professor Mohammad Hamadan, he received his bachelor degree in mathematics from Cairo University and his PhD also in mathematical statistics from Sydney University. And he was appointed senator at the upper house of parliament in Jordan in December 2007 by a royal decree. He served as a minister of higher education and scientific research in Jordan for 3 terms, and as Secretary General of the Higher Council for Science and Technology from September 98 till July 1990 now. He is now the Senior Advisor of Arab Open University, and he will tell us about special experiences in founding a regional non-traditional university. Please join me to welcome Professor Hamadan.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنه لشرف كبير لي أن أكون معكم في هذا اليوم المبارك لأحدثكم من بداية بالنسبة لي في العمل الجامعي أو في الدراسة الجامعية إلى ما أعتبره قريبا من نهاية مسيرتي الأكاديمية. البداية كانت في جامعة القاهرة. في جامعة القاهرة التحقت بها عام 1953 لدراسة الرياضة البحتة، الرياضيات البحتة، وكنا في السنة الأولى 55 طالباً. عندما دخل الأستاذ قاعة المحاضرات وجد هذا العدد كبيراً، فسألنا عن المعدلات التي حصلنا عليها في الثانوية بدءاً من 60 70 80 90، فالذين كانوا في 90 5 من 55. فقال لنا في العام القادم في سنة ثانية سيستقر العدد على 5، وفي ذلك كان إحباط كبير لكثير من الطلبة، ولكن واقع الحال أنه في السنة الثانية لم يكن إلا 5 طلاب في تخصص رياضة بحتة في جامعة القاهرة عام 53. في السنة الثالثة كان الشرط لأن يستمر في دراسة Special Degree in Pure Mathematics أنه يكون حاصل على تقدير جيد جدا أو امتياز، فلم يحقق هذا الشرط من الخمسة إلا طالب واحد. ولما كان هذا الطالب غير مصري فاعتقدت أن الأمر سيؤول بي إلى حول فيزياء ولا حول كيمياء ولا شيء كهذا كطالب أردني، ولكن لتعلموا أن القسم افتتح لسنتين متتاليتين لطالب أردني بقسم الرياضة البحتة، تخصص رياضة بحتة سبيشال ديجري. كنت أذهب إلى الأستاذ في مكتبه، لم يكن هنالك قاعة محاضرات مثل هذه، فيجلسني بجانبه ونتناقش في المقررات. في كل المقررات كنا ننهي ما هو مقرر في الكتاب باللغة الإنجليزية، وكتاب في الواقع جامعة القاهرة مناهجها كانت كلها بريطانية في ذلك الوقت، والمؤلفون من يعني كبار الأساتذة، حتى أن في بعض الحالات كان يستقدم أحد المدرسين الذين ألفوا الكتاب لتدريسه لفصل دراسي في جامعة القاهرة. فعندما يأتي شهر فبراير أو مارس نكون قد أنهينا المقرر، فأعتبر أنني سأرتاح حتى نهاية ذلك الفصل، وأعود في يونيو لأمتحن، فيقول الأستاذ لا احنا بدنا نستمر، فنأتي بالكتاب الذي يليه، يعني متقدم ربما حتى من مستوى الماجستير ليدرسه. هكذا كان الأساتذة وهكذا كان الإخلاص. أود أن أقول هذا لأن يعني بلدكم الطيب مصر فتح قلبه وجامعاته لجميع أبناء الأمة العربية عند لم يكن هنالك جامعات في الوطن العربي لتعليم أبناء العرب، وهذه هي التجربة الواسعة العربية الكبيرة في هذا البلد المعطاء. فأنتم يجب أن تكونوا فخورين فخرا كبيرا بانتمائكم إلى هذا البلد، وكل عربي أيضا يكون فخورا بذلك، لدرجة أن الطلبة المصريين كانوا يدفعون رسوم البطاقة الشخصية لدخول الجامعة، بينما نحن الطلبة العرب لا ندفع شيئا في وقت لم يكن هنالك جامعات في الدول العربية. أنتقل الآن إلى التجربة الأخيرة في مسيرتي الأكاديمية، وهي موضوع جامعة لكل أبناء العرب مستفيدة من وسائل التكنولوجيا الحديثة، اللي هي الجامعة العربية المفتوحة. يعني أنا بعد أن مررت بمراحل كثيرة، أنا عندما قيل لي تحدث عن my institution my experience قلت ماذا أتكلم؟ أنا عملت 11 عاما في الجامعة الأمريكية في بيروت، وعامان في الجامعة الأمريكية في القاهرة، و6 أعوام في جامعة ولاية فيرجينيا تك فيرجينيا ستيت يونيفرسيتي، وعام في جامعة كاليفورنيا سانتا باربرا، وجامعة الملك سعود عامين، وأمين عام المجلس الأعلى للعلوم والتكنولوجيا، مؤسس الجامعة الهاشمية في الأردن لمدة 6 سنوات رئيسا لها، مؤسس مشارك لجامعة اليرموك. كل هذه institutions عملت بها، ولكن رأيت أن أتكلم عن آخر مشروع يعني كلفت به، وهو الجامعة العربية المفتوحة. طبعا تعلمون أن الجامعة العربية المفتوحة لها فرع في مصر هنا، ومؤخرا أنجز بناؤه الدائم في مدينة الشروق، لأن هذه جامعة لكل العرب، وهي تتفق مع البدايات التي لا تزال قائمة إنه جامعات المصرية أيضا مفتوحة لكل العرب، على الرغم من انتشار الجامعات العربية في أرجاء الوطن العربي. الجامعة العربية المفتوحة جاءت فكرتها من رؤية لسمو الأمير طلال بن عبد العزيز، بعضكم يعرفه والبعض يمكن لا يعرفه. هو يعني من الذين أنشأوا مؤسسات في جمهورية مصر العربية، له المجلس العربي للطفولة هنا، برنامج الخليج العربي للتنمية في الرياض، وإنما جاء لأنه وجد بأن كثيرا من النساء العربيات بشكل خاص، وهو يعتبر من نصير المرأة العربية، النساء العربيات الذين يقمن في الأرياف في المناطق البعيدة عن الحواضر التي تركز فيها الجامعات لا تتاح لهم فرصة التعليم. وشيء آخر أن كثيرا من الفتيات العربيات بالأرياف والقرى بعض الأحيان على الرغم من تميزها في الدراسة الثانوية نجد أن الوالد يعني يتقدم لها عريس من الأقارب والأهل فتتزوج وتنقطع عن الدراسة الجامعية، بينما إذا كان ابن ذكر مثلنا حتى لو كان معدله بالثانوية العامة متواضع يجد له جامعة. هذا بتكلم في البلدان العربية الأخرى، ربما في مصر الأمر يختلف، الجامعات الناجحون لهم متاح لهم مقعد في الدراسة، لكن في كثير من الأحيان تجد أن فتاة معدلها يمكن 85 وتزوجت وأصبحت أم لأولاد، بينما أخوها يعني معدله 60 65 70 إن لم يتح له فرصة للدراسة في بلده فإن الفرصة تتاح له بالخروج من البلد وينفق عليه ليتخرج جامعيا. وأي شيء في الواقع أهم من تعليم الفتاة العربية الأم العربية لتكون هي الأم المثقفة المتعلمة التي تربي أبنائها وأبناء الوطن. فمن هنا جاءت الرؤية لهذه الجامعة العربية المفتوحة. سأسرع في الشرائح الآن بعد هذه المقدمة. هل الرؤية السمو الأمير المذكورة أمامكم أنا لا أدري، أنا أتكلم باللغة العربية وربما يكون هذا في بعض جوانبه غير مناسب. هل هنالك من لا يتابعني باللغة العربية؟ Is there anybody who cannot follow my presentation in Arabic? There is, yes? طيب إذن سأنتقل إلى اللغة الإنجليزية. You don't follow up, yeah? It's okay, it's okay. So the vision of His Royal Highness Prince Talal bin Abdulaziz was to find an opportunity for every Arab national who is capable and willing of university education. He formed a working team from a good number of Arab education, people in education from the Arab countries, and that was the team that looked into a feasibility study which was performed by Arthur Anderson, الشركة التي قامت بالfeasibility study. And at the end of this, it was decided that there is need for an Arab open university using the open learning system. Not that there was no universities of open learning in the Arab world, but there was no regional Arab university for open learning system with a different approach from the approach which was existing for other open universities. I was appointed as I was one of the working team which helped into evaluating the feasibility study. There were people from every Arab country, one from each Arab country. I don't know exactly how. Somebody mentioned my name to Prince Talal, and I was the Jordanian on the team. And at the end, I was picked up to be the rector or the president of that university in 1999. And that was the beginning of a very difficult path. To start with, you would have to find a reputable open learning institution in order, rather than to reinvent the wheel, to adopt the programs of that institution. In the feasibility study, there was Indira Gandhi Open University, there was the British Open University, there was Macquarie Australian Open University, a number of open universities. And finally, we decided that we'll go for the UK Open University, which is one of the oldest open universities, started in 1969. So there were agreements that had to be set with the Open University in the UK. Tour of ministers of higher education in the Arab region. Since I was Minister of Higher Education for a number of times, I could easily make arrangements to visit a good number, I won't say all, of Arab ministers of higher education. And in Egypt, it was Dr. Mufid Shihab, whom I visited, and he was very encouraging. In Kuwait, it was Dr. Yusuf El-Ibrahim. And so I don't want to mention names here, but that was a hard task. And I had flat no from a good number of them, because they thought that this is a degree that's going to be by correspondence. Although we were explaining that, no, this is not a degree by correspondence, as we will see as we go on. Again, we presented the project to the ministers of higher education. They had a meeting in Beirut in September 2000. And we had encouragement from 5 Arab states that asked to host the headquarters of the university. Egypt was one of them, Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan, and Lebanon. And so we had 5. In talking to all the ministers of higher education, I was stressing 2 things. First, that this is not by correspondence, because this is going to be open learning, where we have a proportion of face-to-face instruction. It is, as it ended up at 25% of face-to-face instruction. And secondly, that the university will be subject to course validation and institutional accreditation according to the rules and bylaws of each Arab country, so that the degree will be accredited like any other university. But on top of all that, we had to say that we are also seeking at that time international accreditation, OUVS, Open University Validation Services, which is a UK accreditation institution. At the end, when we compared, again, we did not decide at the time that we will open a branch in any one of the universities unless we get an official request from that government to open that branch, because this is a completely a non-profit institution. This is not a company where you have shares and you end up dividing dividends or whatever it is. So all these countries that requested to host the headquarters, or the other countries, they all had a special request that under these provisions and conditions that I was mentioning, they would like to have a branch of the university, a branch of the Arab Open University. As I mentioned, now 5 branches. We have now additional branches in Oman, and Sudan came at a later point in time. And Kuwait was picked up to be the headquarters of the university. This is the mission. I have talked about that. We need now support of the Arab governments, provision of facilities and exemptions. In every Arab country, we have tax exemptions, unlike any other university. We request that a piece of land, a governmental piece of land, be allocated for the university if possible. And we have had this in a number of our branches. In Kuwait, we had a land which is given by the government. In Jordan, it's a land that was given by the government. In Oman, it's a land that was given by the government. In Egypt, we were told that this is not a common practice in Egypt, but we will be able to purchase a piece of land with preferential rates, سعر تفضيلي, and this is what happened. We ended up buying some 23,000 square meters in Madinat al-Shuruq, and this is in Egypt. Recognition of the Arab Open University and meeting the standards of course validation and institutional. This was all the support from the governments. Again, existing universities, cooperation, we are cooperating with existing universities. In the open learning system, you need to satisfy the requirements of accreditation by having the minimum number of full-time faculty members. And you depend quite a lot on part-time members. And these part-time members are sometimes appointed late in the game because you wait until you see how many people are registered for that course. If your full-time faculty members cover that, you don't need any part-timers, but most probably always we need part-timers. Part-timers are recruited from the existing universities in each country. Our policy also is for the staff to be appointed from the country itself. This is the employees, because this has, a development sort of for each country contribution. But for the faculty members, no, the faculty members competition, and any Arab faculty member can be in any of the branches. Also, existing universities can take advantage of AAU educational materials. We were surprised how much we found some existing universities find our educational material is of high standard, and some of them made good use of that. Now, the Open University in the UK. What kind of cooperation we had to do with them? We visited with them, and after we signed 3 agreements, we started using their educational material. The first agreement was to license their educational material, the same educational material that they use over there. It will come at a later point in time that the disciplines that are taught in the university are disciplines which are based on market survey in each of the Arab countries. We did not want to flood the market with graduates unless we make this study. And the study showed at the beginning that there are 4 disciplines that we will embark with. The first was IT with its branchings, information technology. Second one was English language and literature. And the third one, business administration with also some branches. And the fourth one is teacher training, education in the sense of preparing teachers. These are only the 4 programs that we started with. This will come later in the point. And 3 of these programs, we had material from the British, the UK, OU. At the beginning, it was difficult to convince authors. You know how academicians, and I'm one of them, are hard when you want to change anything in a book that they have written, because this is their rights and their freedom. But we told them that your educational material will be taught in Saudi Arabia, in Kuwait, in the Arab world, and we have our traditions, we have our culture, and we cannot have some biases that might be in that educational material presented in our courses. And with this, we could convince them that we will weed out from their texts some cultural biases. This was a very hard task that I had to do with some of these, especially in the business. You know, if there is the word beer, we changed that beer into soft drink. If there is a boyfriend, we used a friend. Or, you know, even things, changes like that, editorial changes, it was very hard to have them. Some of the sort of pictures and demonstrations, whatever it is, if we see that this is not befitting to be taught in Saudi Arabia or in Kuwait or in Oman or in Bahrain, then, or in Jordan even, we weeded that out. So that was a big task of licensing that. And then we signed an agreement with them for that. Of course, we have to pay them. The second one, because again, the open learning system, we are all taught on the classical, traditional approach to teaching. So we had experts from them to coach, to train our recruited faculty members on their approach to delivery of this system of education. And then also we had an agreement on institutional accreditation and course validation. And this was the hardest part, which involves now external examiners. It involves continuous sort of monitoring. And we have had, at the beginning, validation for 5 years, and then it has been also extended for another 5 years. A very lengthy and costly process in preparation for the visits of the accreditation teams, and this is going on. And it gave the university credibility. with the Arab states where we are operating. Now, the programs that we have, as I said, we have started with 4-degree programs. They are here. The English language and literature is the English language which is written for native speakers. A British subject in London or whatever it is, when they enroll for an English degree program, English and literature, it's the same in the Arab Open University. I must say here that although the door, when you want to enter this open university, it is open, is wide, but when you want to exit, the door is narrow. You have to satisfy certain quality requirements before you graduate from the university because of the external examiners and the monitoring that is continuous with the UKOU. Language instruction, we'll see that we have the admission requirements. We have added programs there, the business administration, computer science, marketing and IT, accounting and IT, English language and business administration, BA, master's degree. In the last 3 years, at least, we started the postgraduate programs, master's degree in business administration, not in all the branches. In Jordan, all these are in Jordan, and some of them are in Lebanon. But some others are still waiting before they embark on master's programs. Master's degree in computer science, and master's degree in English language and literature, and master's degree in educational leadership. The enrollment, we had in mind a target of reaching 100,000 students. Now we have in the 7 Arab countries some 30,000 students. We are going slowly but surely. Although the door is open, but we have requirements for admission. English language, because the instruction is in English, then anybody who is rather weak on that side finds it very difficult to go through our programs. So we have an English program for the students. After we give them a placement exam, they can either start English 98 or English 99 or English 100. These are 3 courses before you embark on English 101, which is the real course for the first year. But we are willing to take the hand of any student who is willing to go ahead with us. So we have around now 30,000 students. In Egypt, there are about 1,500 students. We are going for learning centers. Madinat al-Shuruq seems to be a little bit far. When we started in rented premises, and this is another task to find proper rented premises for a university. And also this gives a look down at a university which is in rented buildings at the beginning. Another difficulty that we had, but we promised everybody that we are in the process of purchasing land or land donated to us to start our own buildings. Requirements, the general secondary school certificate or its equivalent. Now, passing Tawjihi is okay, but in some Arab countries, 50 in Tawjihi is not enough. In Jordan, for example, the minimum to be admitted into a private university is 60. For private universities, 65% for the public universities. So, plus passing the admission test and also the English requirements, this is for admission. And this is where I say the door is open when you enter. The tuition fees, again, Prince Talal in his mind, because he was targeting the poorer people. Private universities in the Arab world, they have soaring up high tuition fees. Here the tuition fees are around $1,500 per year. Now, of course, this varies from country to country. Even the salaries of faculty vary from one country to country because we take the cost of living index, and there is differential in salaries and also in tuition fees, but this is the average. There is a student fund at the university to help out needy students. Now, the open learning system, I talked about it quickly. It's blended. It's called blended open learning. In the open universities, generally, you don't have to attend classes. but we would have never secured accreditation by any Arab Ministry of Higher Education if we did not include the face-to-face component. The student at the beginning of the week on the e-learning platform, he gets the module for that week. He works on that module and he studied it and there are some exercises, etc. During the week, he can on the internet correspond with the tutor. For every 25 students, there is a tutor, an assigned tutor. So he can chat or if he has any difficulty. But in addition to all this, by the end of the week, there is a session, a face-to-face session for these 25 students with their tutor to discuss any difficulties or problems they have had with that module. The evaluation is based on a 100% scale, of which 50% are for work during the semester. This is about 25% for a midterm exam, and 25% for MTAs, tutor TMAs, tutor marked assignments. The assignments that the student is given, he would have to work on that and submit them online, and then he gets grades for them. Not only grades, the requirement by the UKOU is that when you are grading, you don't say صح or غلط and you put a grade. You have to make comments. They go, when they sample out what we do, our tutors do, they would like to see comments written by hand or by on the computer by the tutor to help out the student find out where he went wrong or what was not perfect in his assignment. Final exam is زي التوجيه, final exam. In each course, it is a centralized final exam. The questions are set in a group with external examiners from the UKOU participating in setting the exams, and also the tutors in the branches, but all the branches. And it is held at the same time in all the branches. Now, as mentioned, Kuwait, Jordan, Lebanon, Oman, Bahrain, Sudan, all these, at the same time, this final exam, which holds 50%, the director of the branch cannot announce the grades of the students after the papers are graded, because all the grades go centrally to Kuwait, to the headquarters, and the external examiners moderate the grades, yani statistical moderation, normal distribution, whatever, but they still, because one branch may be very generous with the grades, another branch, it's the same educational material, it's the same delivery method, teaching methods, so there is no reason why in one branch there will be upper 90s and 80s grades, in another branch 60s and 70s. So there is moderation of grades by the external examiners, and then they go back to the branch to announce the grades. In addition to the headquarters, or at least the branch office, we have learning centers. And as here in Egypt, maybe we need learning centers because there are so many students who find it difficult to go to Medina Shuruq. In Jordan, for example, the branch is in Amman, but we have a learning center in the north, in Irbid, and we have a learning center in the south, in Karak. So that will make it easy, because this is the whole idea. You want to make it easy for the students to get this is the idea. In Saudi Arabia, we have not only learning center, we have regional centers. The branch is in Riyadh. There is a regional center in Jeddah. There is a regional center in Medina al-Munawwara. And recently I was there to pick up the land, to look at the land. I'm in the building committee. There is a building committee chaired by Prince Turki bin Talal, who's the son of Prince Talal. And this is the committee that is making all the requirements, looking at all the space requirements from an educational point of view, and also the building structure. So in Medina, we're starting building. Now, the buildings that are finished now in Kuwait, headquarters is finished. Kuwait branch is finished. Jordan, we have a building. In Bahrain, we have finished a building. In Saudi Arabia, the building is under construction. And in Egypt, of course, the building in Egypt is also finished. See, I'm getting there now. This is, I talked about this, how we go about it with the 25% attendance. I talked about it. If there is a 3-credit-hour course, Rather than go 3 times to attend classes in the traditional approach, they go only once. This is about 33% to 25%. Now, the sources of funding, we started with 32 million, which is by AG Fund. AG Fund is the Arab Gulf Program for Development. This is chaired, it has a board, which is chaired by Prince Taral. But for the buildings, we have already spent $150 million on the buildings that we completed, and we need at least another $150 million to finish the buildings. We're seeking donations from, in Kuwait we have had some good donations. I must say that Kuwait has been very generous with the university as headquarters of the university. Also from Saudi Arabia we had some donations, and we will still, there is a special committee for that, because AG Fund cannot donate the whole amount that is needed for all these building structures. We have requests from Yemen for a branch, from Syria, and from Palestine, Ramallah. Right now, when I mention all these 3 countries, you know what is holding us at the beginning, but there is a formal request from each one of this. Recently, Ramallah, there has been discussion with the Minister of Higher Education and also with the Palestinian President, and I think we're converging towards a branch there. In Yemen, again, we were nearly there. There are negotiations, but they are on hold now. We are hoping that this will be a pan-Arab university. Eventually, we would like this university to be there for everybody who is willing to pursue their education. One thing I want to say, at one point or another, I was the first founding president of a university. In English, there is find and there is found. When you become a president of a university which is established, you find a university, right? The university is there. But found when you go from a barren land, there is nothing. And you want to start, right, not only curriculum, recruitment of faculty members, buildings, etc. And that was my task with this university. And I hope that after I finished my term as president, as the first founding president, now the president is an ex-minister of higher education in Kuwait, Dr. Modi Al-Hamoud. She is a higher education. We have a board, a prestigious board of trustees chaired by Prince Talal. A co-chairman is Queen Rania Al-Abdallah of Jordan, our queen, my queen, I should say. And also we have Dr. Mufid Shihab from Egypt. And also from Egypt we have Muna. Yes. Dr. Abid is the rector. But Muna Makram Abid, yes. Muna Makram Abid is a second board trustee member. The director of the branch used to be president of Hulwan University, Dr. Abid. Dr. Abid. What's his name? Abdel Hay. Abdel Hay Abid. But there is another name, Abid. Maybe he's more known not with Abid. Abdel Hay. He is our rector here in Egypt. And we are hoping that the Egypt branch will pick up well now after we finished the building. So this is a university for all the Arabs. And as I said, the beginning was with also Egyptian universities, which were all for the Arabs and still are for the Arabs and all the Arabs. And we hope that there will be prosperity for all our institutions in the light of giving to these institutions. Since I have established a number of institutions in Jordan, I tell you the difference between when I started. When I started, I used to go to bankers, I used to go to wealthy Arab nationals, and they were giving generously. But these days, God help us all, and we hope we get out of all this in good. Now, the final word that I would say to our younger people, our attendees, is that one should never, if you are assigned a task, at the beginning you may look at that task, at the volume of work of that task, And don't be discouraged if this is it seems to be very heavy. Good planning, good approach to management, good sources of help that you will find along the path will help you to succeed. So success comes from hard work, believing in what you are doing, believing in the cause that you would have to do, and you will do it. So nothing should stop in our face as an obstacle from achieving what we head for. The other thing is that for the young generation, you hear a lot about why should I do this when I find out that people who are undeserving end up getting or the high-ranking positions and all this in my country. I would say one thing to them. I myself, the one before me, come from a very simple family, a family who would have never been able to send me to university if I did not get a scholarship, and I assumed the highest positions. Because if you do good work, forget about wasta and all this that people use, but use your own good work to reach your goals and achieve your goals. God bless you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أسعد الله مساءكم بما أن الساعة الآن 12:20. سأتحدث في البداية بالعربية، بعدين أقلب إلى اللغة الإنجليزية حتى يفهم الإخوان الأفارقة يعني ما سأقول عن أكاديمية العالم الإسلامي للعلوم, Islamic World Academy of Sciences. Yesterday, Dr. Ismail Sirajuddin took us on a whirlwind tour of the science and technology landscape in the world. Today, I will take you, hopefully, on a helicopter tour of the science and technology landscape in the Islamic world, identifying in the process some champions of science and technology in the world, in the Islamic world, and in the Arab world. Essentially, the presentation that I prepared was supposed to tell you about how brilliant I have been in the domain of science and technology, but it would have been a very short presentation. So I decided, rather than to talk about myself, I will talk about the institution I've been working for the last 25 years, and about some of the figures that I have had the pleasure of meeting and interacting with through my work at the Islamic World Academy of Sciences, people who have really dedicated their lives to the betterment of societies in the developing world, in the Arab world, and for the purpose of the betterment of humanity. This is the title of my presentation, a snapshot of some champions of science, technology, and innovation in the world and the OIC. Of course, as I work for the Islamic World Academy of Sciences, I shall try to link up some of the champions that I mention with academies of sciences, with organizations or institutions such as the Bibliotheca Alexandrina here. Because academies of sciences are the reason why we are here today as guests of TWAS-ARO and the Library of Alexandria. Roughly speaking, this is how my presentation will be divided up. Why science? This is something that I need to remind myself and others every now and then of the reason why we are involved in the scientific enterprise. A reality check. We all need that as scientists and as managers or administrators of the scientific enterprise to remind our political leaders of the value of science as a means of achieving socio-economic development. And then I will talk about some of the STI champions and where they come from, some of the people that we at the Academy, I personally have met and interacted with and discovered to be doing a lot of good work, as I said, for the betterment of humanity. Then I'll talk about the IAS, the organization to which I belong, and I will end with a couple of end notes. Now, the raison d'etre of science, the reason why we are interested in science and the scientific enterprise, We started off with a list, with the WEHAB, proposed by Kofi Annan back in 2002. Kofi Annan proposed WEHAB as the acronym representing the issues that we have to address in the scientific enterprise. I have found myself over the years adding onto the WEHAB, so it has become WEHAB-S. I have added, after realizing the importance of the subject, climate change, wealth creation, something that was talked about yesterday by Dr. Hamdi, contribution to world civilization, and culture of peace. So it's for all these reasons that we need science. This is the water situation. Jordan is currently the world's most poor country in terms of water resources. Dr. Abdin Saleh, who was sitting here a moment ago, knows this as a water expert from the region. Egypt, of course, has some water difficulties. The majority of Middle Eastern countries do have water problems. Energy is another issue. Even with the current decline in the price of oil, energy, this is a satellite photo. We are here, I think, at the moment. And this is where I and Dr. Hamadan come from. This is Amman, Jordan. This is a satellite image of the Eastern Mediterranean region, indicating and showing the need for energy and a sound energy policy in the Middle East. Many countries are endowed with oil, and many countries do not have energy resources sufficient to maintain the economic cycle of the country. Health is another reason why we are interested in science. Agriculture, food security, a very important issue. And again, yesterday we saw some figures about Egypt's plans to achieve, again, food security for her population. Biodiversity, climate change is another issue why science is very important for academies of sciences. This is a pessimistic slide showing the eventuality of, or the impact of, a potential of a rise in sea level of 0.5 to 1 meter. We are here again. So the issue of climate change is real from a scientific viewpoint, and it's an issue that we need to address through scientific means, through evidence-based, to try and mitigate the effects of climate change and try and minimize the harmful effect of climate change occurring if it occurs. Wealth creation is also a very important area that we need to look at. Science is a very noble enterprise, but science nowadays has to pay for itself. And a lot of world-class innovations and inventions have to be translated into monetary value, not only to profiteer for, not only to make profits for the innovators and the entrepreneurs, but to actually pay for the scientific enterprise. Contribution to world civilization, the Islamic civilization is, for 1,000 years, was world leader in science and the scientific enterprise. I myself have attended a number of lectures here by Dr. Ismail Sirajuddin and others on the excellence that was achieved within the Islamic civilization for 1,000 years. So, again, we need to embark on science and the scientific enterprise for that purpose. Now, all of us have been concerned with development over the last 20 years since the MDGs were adopted at the United Nations. Now, recently, the world community has decided to move from MDGs to SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Unfortunately, instead of having crisp, clearly defined Millennium Development Goals like we used to have, the SDGs in the current draft represent a very complex set of targets and objectives that you tend to get lost within the maze of targets that you have to achieve as scientists and technologists. And in fact, for a little while, the S&T component was lacking or missing within the newly adopted SDGs. This is until UNESCO recently intervened through the Director General of UNESCO to reintroduce science and research and give science and research a second chance. This is after a ministerial breakfast when the SDGs were approved, and R&D commitments were again reintroduced in the final draft of the SDGs, and a commitment to support the achievement of the SDGs through science, technology, and innovation. Now, as is usual within the realms of academies of sciences, we'd like to go back to reality and talk about some figures and tell you a little bit as to where some Arab countries stand currently in the domain of science, technology, and innovation excellence. This is the Global Competitiveness Report published by the World Economic Forum in 2014, showing some of the countries of the Middle East have fared over the last 4 years. Red indicates a decline over the last 4 years in the 3 indicators shown here: capacity for innovation, quality of scientific research institutions, university-industry collaboration. We see a decline or a deterioration in Kuwait, in terms of quality of scientific research institutions. Kuwait, of course, at some point was a leading country in terms of science, technology, and innovation, as well as higher education, as well as in university-industry collaboration. We also see a huge decline in Oman, from 61 to 103 in capacity for innovation, in quality of research institutions also, and in university-industry collaboration. An improvement in Qatar, a deterioration in Saudi Arabia, an improvement in the UAE, and some decline in the various indicators in Egypt. This is out of 144 countries. These statistics indicate the level of the country out of 144 countries. And last but not least, Jordan at the bottom there, we see a decline in the an improvement in the capacity for innovation, an improvement in the quality of scientific research institutions, as well as an improvement from the 99th spot to the 52nd in university-industry collaboration. Another favorite indicator that we all like to talk about is the GERD, gross expenditure on research and development. These are the latest figures for the Arab region. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that we'll have some friends from Africa. Otherwise, I would have introduced a couple of figures from Africa to compare. But one thing that Egypt can be proud of is the current rate of GERD, which is the highest of all time for Egypt, 0.68 of 1%. It's still below international standard, of course, but quite an improvement on figures of earlier years. In Jordan, it's 0.43%. This is the figure for 2008. In Tunisia, the highest amongst Arab countries, it's 1.1% of GDP. This is for 2009. Now, I no longer compare the figures we have to Israel and other countries. I prefer to choose some distant, peaceful countries to compare the GERD figures with. Sweden is 3.62%, and Finland is 3.96%. Saudi Arabia, it's 0.07 of 1% of GDP. This is the expenditure for Saudi Arabia. Iraq, surprisingly, it's almost negligible. This is GERD expenditure in Iraq. Now, of course, a lot of these figures have been calculated and proposed by experts who know the details. But sadly, only 2 or 3 Arab countries have monitors, STIOs, science, technology, and innovation observatories. I think Egypt has recently started one at the ASRT, from which I got this figure. Jordan has not succeeded in establishing its STIO. The decision was taken, the money was allocated in 2010, but as far as I know, no action has been taken to establish a science, technology, and innovation observatory. Palestine has an observatory, as well as Tunisia. Publications, this is something that will be interesting to our young TWAS affiliates in terms of publications. Saudi Arabia currently, this is 2011, current leads amongst Arab countries in absolute figures. Egypt is second, and the other Arab countries follow in terms of scientific and technical journal articles published in some Arab countries. The source of this is Thomson Reuters, of course. Now, a more indicative figure would be to calculate scientific and technical journal articles published per million population. That, I think, would be, I didn't have time to do that, but I think I will at some point, to get a real picture of the advancement that countries have made in this domain over the last 5 years. High-tech exports is another indicator that we often look at in when assessing the STI landscape of any country. Amongst the OIC countries, Malaysia leads with around 55% of the total OIC exports coming or originating from Malaysia. Amongst Arab countries, I think Morocco leads with about 7 or 8% of its exports, total exports, being high technology products. Oman is second with 3.4%. UAE, Jordan, essentially in some electronic equipment, software, and some pharmaceuticals, whilst the majority of Arab countries do not really contribute to high technology exports. Now, universities in the OIC, this is the 57 countries, member countries of the Islamic Organization of Islamic Cooperation. We have 3,281 universities, of which 9 were ranked among the world's 500 top universities. This is according to the academic ranking of world universities of 2014, published by the Shanghai Jiaotong University. We find King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah, King Saud University, University of Tehran, and University of Malaya are the highest ranked universities within the OIC. These are the institutional champions, if you like, currently of higher education at the level of the OIC. Of course, at some point, the University of Cairo occupied an advanced rank within the Shanghai Jiaotong ranking, but for 2014, it is not there. Global Innovation Index, again, we find Malaysia is the champion country in terms of, or on the Global Innovation Index, occupying the 33rd rank, followed by the UAE, 36th, Saudi Arabia, 38th, Qatar is 47th, and Turkey is 54th. Now, enough figures for the moment. Let's talk about people. These are the photos of the 3 highly cited, active Arab scientists according to the June 2014 figures. This gentleman is very surprised that he's been chosen as one of the, he looks very surprised as if he's been chosen one of the active and the highly cited scientist in the Islamic world, or in the Arab world rather. He is a Professor Salim Masoudi, an Algerian working at King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals. Professor Ali Naifi, the very famous Ali Naifi of Virginia Tech, who's currently visiting professor at the University of Jordan and actually settled in Jordan at the moment. And last but not least, Professor Shahar al-Momani, Professor of Mathematics at the University of Jordan. According to the June 2014 reading, only these three Arab scientists were ranked amongst the world's highly cited scientists.
Is TWAS.
Two of them are members of TWAS. Shahar is a TWAS prize laureate. Ali is a member of TWAS. And Masoudi is a fellow of the African Academy of Sciences, I believe. Right. Now, there is a silver lining at the conclusion of this quantitative part of the presentation, and that's very interesting. That of note is the explicit and clear reference in Article 23 of Egypt's newest constitution that the state guarantees the freedom of scientific research and encourages its institutions as a means towards achieving national sovereignty and building a knowledge economy. The state also supports researchers and inventors and allocates 1% of GDP to R&D. I think this is a very commendable national move by Egypt to allocate 1% of GDP to R&D. Iraq has done this in the past in 2005, but sadly has not really complied to its own constitution. I'm sure the case of Egypt would be different, and that 1% would be allocated to R&D starting from next year, particularly as we remember that currently Egypt allocates 0.68% of 1%. Now, where do academies of sciences fit into this crowd? Academies of sciences, as you all know, eminent TWAS fellows and fellows of the African Academy of Sciences are essentially merit-based organizations and represent the scientific leadership in their catchment areas. They are self-renewing, or should be, and they are the elected voice for science and the scientific enterprise. Essentially, they have been focusing on science education amongst other activities over the last 20 years. These are some of the publications emanating from the science education component of the activities of science academies. This is the very famous book, Rising Above the Gathering Storm, published by the US National Academy of Sciences. La Main à la Pâte, which is an activity of the French Academy of Sciences, and this is our own contribution, a conference we organized 17 years ago on science and technology education in the Islamic world. And this is, Dr. Al-Faham wanted some personal touch, and this is a little bit personal touch. This is me giving a lecture on science education to a group of school kids at a religious school in Indonesia, and I found that it's very important to interact with young girls, particularly coming from a religious school, to tell them about the value of science and technology as a means to achieve development. I talked a little bit earlier about the legacy that we have in the Islamic world. I think it has a special meaning when it comes from an international figure such as Carli Fiorina here, who talked about the Islamic civilization and mentioning that when other civilizations were afraid of ideas, the Islamic civilization thrived on them and kept them alive. The civilization she was referring to was the Islamic world from the year 800 to 1600. So there's a lot that we have to rise up to in terms of our scientific approach. Now let me talk about some individuals, talk about some what I call academy-flavored champions. This is gentlemen that you've met yesterday. A lot of people have talked about Professor Abdus Salam of Pakistan, the founding father of TWAS in 1983, and Nobel Prize laureate in physics in 1979. Ahmed Zou'bi, also an academic, amongst other activities. He's an honorary fellow of the Islamic World Academy of Sciences, a member of TWAS, and a member of the US National Academy of Sciences. And this is his new project that will soon embark on contributing to the STI landscape in Egypt. And this is somebody that I've not personally, but I saw a TV series on Professor Ali Mustafa Musharrafa recently, and somebody I've heard about when I was a student in Nottingham more than 35 years ago, because he actually went to the University of Nottingham to read mathematics in the 20s, I believe. Now, amongst his other achievements, as far as I know, he's the founding father of the Egyptian Academy of Sciences. This is not the ASRT, nor is it the Institut d'Egypte. This is the Academy of Sciences of Egypt, which was founded in 1944. The last president of this academy that I know of was the late Professor Mohammad Bahauddin Faiz, and we did some work together a few years ago with the Egyptian Academy of Sciences. Now, these are some of the champions that I've interacted with, and the academy I work for has interacted with over the years. You recognize many of the faces here, of course. I will mention only this young lady here. This is Professor Zuhra bin Lakhdar from Tunis. The others, I'm sure you know. You know Muhammad Hassan, of course. Bruce Alberts, the former president of the US National Academy of Sciences. Yves Carré of the French Academy of Sciences. Omar Abdulrahman, the former science advisor of the Prime Minister of Malaysia. And these are some more figures that have recently come and joined the Islamic World Academy of Sciences, including Professor Abdullah Dar, who's also a fellow of the African Academy of Sciences, I believe, and Professor Amina Ghorib Fakim from Mauritius, recently elected, and I think she has been elected, hasn't she, as president of Mauritius, fellow of the Islamic World Academy of Sciences, and the youngest Naife, Munir Naife of University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. Now, this is one person that I think I need to mention very quickly, Mr. Chairman. This is Dr. Adnan Mjalli, who's a scientist who's actually taken his science to the factory floor and established a medical company in the US called Transtech Pharma, and is currently working on medicines for diabetes and cancer, and doing quite well, in fact, originally from Jordan. Now, very briefly, let me tell you about the Islamic World Academy of Sciences and what we do. We are designed to function as the brain trust of the OIC, and our mission is to provide a dynamic institutional setup that can assist in the utilization of science and technology for the development of Islamic countries and humanity. This is how the academy looked this time last year. This is real snow, by the way. I think Professor Hamadan can verify this. This is exactly 1 year ago. We had a snowstorm in Jordan, and this is how our little office looked back then. And this is the founding father of the IIS on the right, Professor M.A. Kazi, being honored for founding our academy by the founder of TWAS, Abdus Salam. This is, I think, in 1987. So the founders of the two academies, TWAS and the IIS, in one photo. Now, what we have done over the last 20, 25 years Essentially, through conferences and seminars, we have published over 1,200 science policy papers and presented to top decision makers throughout the world, direct contact and engaging decision makers and heads of state, and the voice for the sciences at the international arena. This is a meeting of the IS, again, personal photo of some 22 years ago. You may recognize this gentleman. This is the former vice president of the Islamic World Academy of Sciences, Professor Muhammad Kamil of Egypt, the late Muhammad Kamil. And this is also another manifestation of the engagement that we have with leaders. I think behind the tall gentleman is Professor Mohammad Hamadan, but unfortunately we cannot see him. He was there back in 1993. This is when we met Professor Abdou Diouf of Senegal. And that meeting, actually, he asked as to what academies of sciences do. And our president at the time told him that Senegal has to have an Academy of Sciences. And it was in 1999 that he obliged and decided to establish the Senegal Academy of Sciences and Technology. Now, I'm not saying that it was an immediate response to our plea, no, but I think at least the seeds of the founding of the Senegal Academy of Sciences were made back at that meeting with President Diouf of Senegal. More activities of the IAS, some of the subjects that have been addressed by the IAS at its meetings, including food security, human resources, health, education, energy, environment and development, water resources, information technology, nanotechnology, and natural resources. The current concerns of the IAS include science and technology policy, and this is why we published a book by an eminent fellow of the IAS from Malaysia on science, technology, and innovation policy recently, and I can provide whoever is interested in copies of this book free of charge. Not now, but if I have an address, then we can post some copies to the various addresses. And we've also been focusing on the conventional narrative on the rise and decline of Islamic science, and this is why we have invited Professor George Saliba, who is a frequent visitor to the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, to talk about the alternative narrative on the rise and decline of Islamic science. This is another conference of the IAS that we organized in Malaysia in 2009. And in this photo you see not only the fellows of the IAS, President, some fellows from the various countries, but the Chief Minister of the state of Selangor, who was the host of the conference. I think you probably recognize this gentleman as well here. More activities of the IAS, proceedings, publications, medical journal. We've had our medical journal ongoing now for the last 24 years. It's available online, very respected and very highly cited, but not indexed as yet on Scopus or ISI. We hope to do that within the next year. Policy papers, as I've mentioned, specialized reports, newsletter, the internet. We have a fairly dynamic website that we update regularly. And we have an ongoing initiative that we've had for a long time called the Culture of Science Initiative. These are some of the publications published by the IAS over the last 24 years. One book, in fact, of note is The Water in the Islamic World, an Imminent Crisis. This is a conference to which Professor Abdin Saleh contributed academically as well as logistically. We convened in Khartoum. It has received around 150 citations, which is not bad for a publication that is the proceedings of a conference on water issues. This is from Google, by the way. Specialized training, prizes and awards, lectureships, and we collaborate with the academies that are member of the IAP, 105 academies. With the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, we have long program of collaboration, the French, the Malaysians, the Pakistani Academy of Sciences, with the Bibliotheca Alexandrina here, UNESCO, the World Bank. We have an open door policy regarding collaboration, and we have a number of programs ready to be implemented with help and support of academies of sciences around the world. These are some of the figures or some of the individuals that have been honored by the IIS over the years, receiving the IIS Comstec Ibrahim Prize for achievement in the medical field. They come from Turkey, from Bosnia-Herzegovina, from Iran, from Saudi, from Bangladesh, and from Pakistan. This is a prize that we have every 2 years. The last time the prize was awarded was in 2013 in Bangladesh, when we honored this gentleman. He's a medical doctor who's running a 600-bed hospital looking after diabetes patients, and has been practically volunteering to do that for almost 12 years with negligible resources. He's doing an excellent job and still has time to do some research in the domain of diabetes. Another person who was honored at the same meeting, very briefly, was an entrepreneur, a businessman, who established one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in Bangladesh with a turnover of $200 million, and is willing to train young pharmacists, expand, and collaborate internationally with international organizations and companies. So I think this is one activity that academies of sciences can and should implement, and that is identifying talent. Because our young people, you people at the back, you need role models to look up to, and there are many role models out there that our young people need to look at and aspire to achieve what they have achieved. And because we'd like interacting with young people, although our members are of senior age, we have a website, as I've mentioned, a Facebook page on which we upload daily news items from all over the world to do with science education or the scientific enterprise. And you're welcome to look at that at any time. And also, we publish reports with international organizations. This is the last report, UNESCO Science Report of 2010, published in 2008. And it's interesting, it makes interesting reading now, after the so-called Arab Spring or the Arab pseudo-spring. And what was said in that report was very interesting. And that is governance, al-hakimiyya or al-hawkama, in the majority of Arab countries is in a state of turmoil. Arab regimes are torn between upholding national security as they perceive it and maintaining social order on the one hand, and generally adopting good governance practices on the other. These practices include promoting democracy and the rule of law, promulgating accountability, and combating corruption. Now, what has happened since, of course, shows that the words that I've just read may have had some foresight, because the report also said that the stability and security of the Islamic, particularly Arab countries, cannot simply be a function of military expenditure and expenditure devoted to upholding law and order. Long-term security and prosperity for all countries in the region can only be achieved by addressing the triple helix of food, water, and energy security, combined with sustainable and equitable societies, equitable socioeconomic development in tolerant societies where accountability and rule of law prevail. Science and technology can help achieve some of these goals, if not all. Thank you very much.